So what is quantum jumping or quantum shifting? It's a very difficult word to explain or even break down, primarily because majority of people can't agree on what it actually is. People can't really even agree on the first part of the word, which is what is the quantum field? What is quantum? Now, unfortunately, this has led to what's the word I'm looking for here? People using it very freely, and it's kind of like a buzzword at this point. So in this podcast, I'm going to kind of break down my interpretation of the quantum field, quantum jumping, quantum shifting, how you can start taking action today to utilize this phenomena that science has just come across in the last 10 or so years. So with that being said, let's jump into the podcast.
Traveling to consciousness, exploring spiritual journeys to find answers in uncertainty.
So welcome all of you conscious monkeys to another podcast episode. I'm your host, Clanky Terry, and in today's podcast of Traveling to Consciousness, we are talking about quantum shifting or quantum jumping. They're kind of similar. I guess they have a little bit of a different connotation if you really want to break it down. But in order to understand these terms, we need to discuss what does the word quantum really mean. So as a little bit of a background, we need to understand how we got to this word, how we got to this phenomena, if you will. Well, it was based in science, right? We got telescopes. We kept breaking down the material world deeper and deeper. We kept going deeper into the unknown. And we found atoms. We found protons, electrons, neutrons. They went even deeper. They found quarks. And they went even deeper. And they got to a point where they started seeing things acting very weird once you got down to a certain level. Now, generically speaking, this is when we started hitting the quantum. And where the conversation gets difficult is that nobody really knows exactly what we mean when we say quantum. Even quantum physicists or quantum computists don't know exactly what it means. It's kind of like trying to predict the unpredictable. And my belief is that this is where spirituality steps in. Now, as a preface to this, I want to give a little caveat. The way that I use the word quantum might be different from other ways that you've heard the word quantum used before. And quite frankly, I feel like everyone kind of uses it in a slightly different way. Now, this could be a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing. And the caveat that I want to lend here is just be careful when you read that word. Because to me, it seems as though we don't all exactly agree on what we're talking about when we say quantum. So if someone just says quantum, figure out what they mean when they say that word. You need to describe that word. And so the way that I have been using it or starting to see the world is that this is really where we start tapping into our soul, our spiritual side of things, the side of the things that we cannot perceive with our senses being touch, taste, smell, sight, hearing. This is almost the realm that exists beyond our physical perception that material science is starting to get to. Do you see the problem there? We're talking about material science, which deals with our senses, trying to describe a phenomena or anomena that exists beyond our senses. And this is kind of where it even starts touching into jumping timelines and different realities, which is probably a whole podcast on its own. So I'm going to pause myself there from going deeper down that rabbit hole. Let me know. Shoot me a message if you want me to go down that rabbit hole at some point. But the point here is that we can't describe it. We almost don't have the words to describe it because we're using a technique of material science. We're using a technique of touch and feel and sight in order to describe something that exists beyond all of that. It's so much more. And if you watch any of like the Marvel series, when they start talking about the quantum realm and different timelines, that's like our best attempt at describing things. And they do a pretty good job of it in some regards, but you can't put it all into a movie because it's so much deeper than that. But what they do get right, what is accurate, is your ability to utilize this field to change your perception, to change the reality that you're experiencing. And the way I see it is that it seems to me as though the quantum field is acting whenever you get new little downloads, new little hits of inspiration. That's not coming from the material world. That's coming from something so much greater and so much more vast than anything we can put into words. You get this internal ping that you should text somebody, or you should call somebody, or you should do this thing. You should make this song. You should record this podcast. No logical minded explanation can describe it. We try to describe it with our logical mind after having the thought. But nothing from our logical mind created this quantum event. And this is where I see quantum shifting come into play. Now, I know it sounds like a very fun word. It might sound very powerful. It might sound very difficult to do. It might seem like something that only a select few people can do. But based on what I've just laid forth as my term of quantum, it's something that everybody can do. And everybody does do on a daily basis. Now, sometimes it's a little bit more accidental. And I think that probably majority of people aren't aware of it. So maybe every day they aren't necessarily pulling it off. Like if you look back on your day, you may not think that you have quantum shifted in the day, and that's okay. I'm gonna kind of fix my wordage there. The average person probably does not. If you're listening to this podcast, I think we all know that you are far from average. Much more than average. Average is also not a very fair word, but we'll sidestep that. So how do we consciously quantum shift? I want to use an analogy of Groundhog Day. If you've ever seen it, it's a movie with Bill Murray. If you've never seen it, it's a movie with Bill Murray that's really good. And he keeps waking up in the same day. And the same day is Groundhog Day. And he keeps reliving the same exact thing over and over and over again. Every day he wakes up, it's the same thing. Every day he wakes up, same thing. He gets up. I haven't seen the movie in a while, but he gets up, he talks to one person, and that person says the same thing every single day. And it starts driving him insane. I mean, how could it not drive somebody insane, doing the same thing every single day? What this is that he's representing, and this is why the movie is so incredible and why so many people love it, and it's seen as almost like this cult classic, is that what it's representing is the mundane, us sitting in this looping cycle every single day. We go to work, we get up, we brush our teeth, we do the same thing every single day, the same routine. At this time, I need to do this. At that time, I need to do that. Once I do that, then I do this. And this is not your fault. This is a byproduct of being in a society that has leaned way too far into the masculine, way too far into the doing, the structure, the organization. And there's power in that. Don't get me wrong here. But it leaves no room for the magical, for the quantum, if you will, in the way that I'm describing it. I know some people will describe it differently, but it doesn't leave any room for that to come in and create a new reality. The reason that in Groundhog Day it's so self-evident is because it's exactly the same. But in your everyday life, there's going to be a few little differences that occur. However, if you're looking at it at a quantum or an energetic level, you are living in Groundhog Day. Maybe not you, but people tend to live in a Groundhog Day. I go to work, I do this, I do that. And it's not until we looked for those breaks that we're truly excited. Oh, vacation's coming up, I get to do that. Oh, we're going to go and do something crazy on the weekend. I get to do that because it's a break from your internal energetic Groundhog Day. And this is where quantum shifting comes in. Now, the way that I describe it is I see quantum shifting or quantum jumping as our ability to shift those internal energies, shift the energies at a quantum level. And here's the thing, is quantum, as a reminder, is beyond our physical perception, beyond our five senses. Our emotions are also beyond our five senses. Don't believe me? Can you taste your emotions? Can you touch your emotions? I guess you feel your emotions. I guess whenever we say feel, it's like physical world feel, right? You can emotionally feel them. You energetically feel them. But I would argue that is different. It's a different type of feeling. And it's a feeling that a lot of us push away. We ignore. Because if we were to tap into our feelings, that would be weak. And the feminine is so weak, right? Wrong. Becoming vulnerable and feeling into those energies is one of the most powerful things that we can do, especially for the men that are listening to this podcast. Women, I know you know that, and it can be difficult for you because then there's the whole dilemma where men aren't in tune with it, so then you don't feel safe around men opening up. I get that whole paradigm, and that requires a whole podcast on its own. But right now we're talking about what you can do specifically. And so the idea of quantum shifting, of quantum jumping, is to become hyper aware of that energetic Groundhog Day that you are feeling, that energetic loop that you are continuously running. Every time this happens, I react this way. Every time they do that, I do this. And usually we don't experience this until it's like the big things in life. Like, why is it every 3 years this happens? Or why is it in every relationship it goes like this, and then this happens, and then that happens? I feel like this, they feel like that. And that's whenever we start really truly tapping into our own quantum field within us. So if we want to experience, and here's really where the whole thing comes to a head. If we truly want to experience a different reality, we need to make a quantum shift. We need to shift our energies to experience that new reality. Well, this takes a hyper awareness. This takes you being very real with yourself and being very honest, which is the first step in quantum shifting, is being super freaking honest. Where are you lying to yourself? And I honestly thought that I was very honest of a person. But recently I realized that there was an area of my life where I was not stepping into my power. And I wasn't being honest in the way that I try to be. I do my best to be. So, as just like a little, hey, check it out, you might not be as honest as you think you're being. And it's not just about saying things that are true. It's also about saying things that need to be said. It's about saying things that you know need to be said and decide to say them. That is where the true honesty comes in. It's where your power is. It's where the power lies that is beyond this time and space. That's the power that we're all seeking. It's not in this external world. Oh, so-and-so became president. He has all the power. No. That's an illusion of power. The real power lies within yourself. The real power comes in being able to quantum shift, becoming so aware with your energies that you know when, where, and how to use them, and how to shift them, and how to experience the reality that you truly want to experience. Because it is a choice. You have a choice to shift out of it. You just have to become aware of whenever those energies are repeating or are showing themselves. And that's where you can quantum shift like crazy. This is where miracles come in. This is where synchronicities come in. Is once you can become aware of the energetic loops that are pervading your life. And it's difficult. It takes radical honesty, which is the first tip I want to offer you guys. Is number one, you got to be radically honest. Say things that you know need to be said. Stop whitewashing your truths, because that's a lie too. That's number one. Another thing that you can do I'm blanking on what the other thing you can do was. I just had it. Let me see here. Being honest. Oh, recognizing the energies. I guess I kind of mentioned that already, but to just drive that point home, recognize the energies that are occurring within you. Do you feel tight around certain people? Do you feel like there's something you need to do in certain situations? Is there a certain trigger? Maybe it's like looking at your bank account that makes you feel a certain way. These are hints at where the next little thing lies, where the next little invitation for growth, for quantum shifting lies. And this is kind of where free will comes into the play, because you can choose to avoid all these if you desire. It's 100% up to you. And by no means am I telling you you should. But if you're listening to this podcast, I know you're someone who wants to embrace the change, the challenge, that growth potential that you have, that we all have. So you got to lean into that. That's probably also another thing, is like, it will be uncomfortable. Trust me, it will be uncomfortable because it's a new energy that you're exploring. But some of these things you have to be persistent with. So hopefully you have a good idea of what quantum shifting is. I speak of this one because I have been helping a lot of people recently in this regard of becoming hyper aware of their internal energies and how to make shifts and make little minute changes. And I give them shifting exercises. So if that's something that you're interested in, check out the link below, because I'm doing a thing right now where I'm going to start helping people on a monthly basis. And it's not going to last forever. Us working together won't last forever. I don't want to work with people forever, because then I'm not teaching you. I want you to work with me for a bit, and then you're going to be set free into the world, because you'll have the tools to understand your energy. So I'm only accepting the first 12 people who come in, and then it'll be a rotational thing. So like right now, energetically, I only have room for 12 people. After that, after people start graduating, I'll welcome in more. So check out the link below. It'll have a lot more information. And honestly, even if you don't want to work with me, which is totally cool, keep listening to the podcast. Go read what I've written in that link below, because it will activate something within you. Just even reading my description of what it is I do, you'll hear probably a lot of similar stuff I'm saying right here, but even just reading that will activate something within you. I know it will, and you'll do some minor shifting. You'll have some more awareness. So hopefully this has been an informative podcast for you. So go click that link below. I love every single one of you. And whether or not you choose to quantum shift in this reality, I know that at some point we will all quantum shift, because that is how we will see each other in the 6th dimension.